Modi reiterate his appeal to the nation and to the citizens to curtail the usage of fuel and to cut down the purchase of gold completely wherever necessary, cut down international travel and purchase of foreign goods. That is what has also raised some further fears of what exactly is happening with the Indian economy as the aftermath of the West Asia conflict, which is still ongoing. Let's go across to our special guest this day. We have Madhavi Arora, Chief Economist of Emkay Global, joining in on this special broadcast. Welcome to you, Madhavi. Good to have you with us. Well, it's twice in the last 24 hours that Prime Minister Narendra Modi has talked about conserving fuel and reducing the dependence on imported products. Give us an understanding. What should citizens of the country understand? Is there a serious situation that our Indian economy is facing as the aftermath of the West Asia crisis?
Hi. See, the problem is that we don't necessarily know how long this war could actually stretch. As we understand, there is no solution in sight, which basically means that if this war stretches beyond another 1.5 months, the world could be in a dire, straight situation as far as energy security is concerned. So it's always good to prepare beforehand. In fact, India has been a laggard compared to Asian economies in terms of any kind of policy advisory. We still haven't really had any formal policy advisory, more like a national appeal that the PM is doing. If you look at other Asian economies, they already have implemented things like work from home, things like restricting economic activity to some extent. Industry capacities have been also constrained. So all of those steps have already been taken by other Asian peers in the last 1.5, 2 months, but India has only started to now talk about it. So I think it's high time we actually start preparing for a more prolonged energy crisis, which could hit us dramatically. We already are seeing impact of that playing out in the financial sector. We've seen the rupee really plunging to all-time lows. We also are seeing the impact being played out in all asset classes, to be very honest. So I think there is indeed a dire need to start discussing the economic pain of this energy crisis, which is likely to also hit consumers eventually.
Absolutely. Let me also welcome our market guest. Gaurang Shah is also joining the panel. Gaurang, how are you looking at this sharp fall in the markets? Over 440 points of a decline today, 2 days of consecutive fall. I think investors have lost cumulatively 15 lakh crore rupees in the last 4 trading sessions alone. Last part of this fall has come in the last 2 sessions, and a part of it also has to do with what Prime Minister Modi has been reiterating. He's constantly talking about work from home, conserving fuel, conserving foreign exchange, reducing the import bill, protecting the economy. We're trying to understand from Madhavi what exactly is the current state of the economy, but what should investors in the stock markets understand right now?
Hi, Sakshi. Thank you for having me on your show. Good afternoon to all your viewers and to you as well. So, not only the high crude oil prices, but also a weak rupee against the dollar plays a double-edged sword for our economy, for inflation, for GDP. And it puts an additional burden on the exchequer. So, these are preemptive measures that the Honorable Prime Minister has reiterated for the second time. And the kind of dependency that we have on imports of our energy requirement is known to each and everyone. And along with that, you have a depreciating rupee against the dollar. So, and this could also possibly lead to some kind of a degrowth, Sakshi, in the earnings. Look, what we are witnessing right now is the 4th quarter earnings for the last financial year. And this war started on 28th of Feb 2026. So the impact would not be felt much in the 4th quarter. It is the 1st and the 2nd quarter of this new financial year that we will possibly start seeing some amount of degrowth coming in. How much, to what extent, I think that we can only speak when the numbers are out or when we get some verbatim from the respective companies. Largely, Sakshi, those sectors and companies which are dependent on crude oil, LPG, and derivatives would definitely get impacted, is what my guess is as of now, but we'll have to wait and watch. So markets have succumbed to under pressure, and I think the kind of correction and the levels that we've broken both on the Sensex and Nifty, this could open up a little bit of more downside.
More downside ahead, and we'll definitely speak to you about the sectors. But Madhavi, coming to you, what the Prime Minister has said: do not buy gold for next 1 year. Do not, travel unnecessarily in case you're planning an international travel. If you can avoid for the next 1 year. Forget about imported goods or foreign goods. Stop purchasing all of those goods as well. What do these really mean? If Indians stop doing that for the next 1 year, how will it impact the economy?
See, this is basically targeted more to ensure that we have, incrementally less of FX outflow. From the economy point of view, of course, to that extent, it is, it's more of an FX story than necessarily an economic activity story, because large chunk of the restriction that he wants to sort of put, in terms of the national level are largely focusing on, the import side of the economy. So I'm not sure how the economic impact would be playing out on the growth story. It's more a current account and pain that could be reduced at the margin. Of course, it's again, as I said, it's a public appeal. It is not a policy instation at this point in time. So you can't expect a homogeneous behavior from citizens to stop doing these things that the Prime Minister, sort of mentioned. If there's actually a restriction in terms of, import demand, or in terms of foreign travel, or in terms of any kind of, FX outflows that we are facing, then it could be a different story altogether. I think these are just national appeals. Immediately, they do not impact my numbers at this point in time. If there is indeed a gold restriction that comes into play, either in the form of higher import duty or quantum restriction, that would be a decent delta on current account, because gold now accounts for largely 9.5% of our total imports. It used to be just about 5-6% just 5 years ago. So it's the second largest, third largest import that we have at this point in time, and again a big strain on our books. Besides that, they could also restrict things like LRS and all of that. Those things we'll have to see, but at this point they're just national appeals and they don't impact my numbers immediately.
In fact, we also spoke to the Titan management as well amid Prime Minister Modi's appeal to avoid gold purchases as to how are these companies those primary business is to sell gold. So Titan currently has said that they have enough gold inventory for the next couple of months, and it's too early to see whether there is any impact on jewelry demand or gold demand from the consumer side. Let's listen in to what Titan CFO Ashok Sonthalia had to say to Business Today Television.
We have for next 3-4 months, if you think about the manufacturing side of us, we have inventory which can take us for the next 2-3-4 months quite easily. We also heard from the government that they don't want to raise the custom duty on gold, which is a welcome move to my mind. As far as the customer demand side is concerned, very tough to kind of tell right now. Just within 48 hours, we have not seen any sign. Maybe in a couple of weeks, we will know how customers are responding. But some of the things are very critical, in Indian context, when the more than 50% of jewelry purchases are on account of weddings. How much reduction can happen? It is to be seen. The other one is that the exchange program can work very nicely, where they kind of take care of government concern from the import point of view and foreign exchange point of view, and still satisfies customer desire, demand, need, because wedding is a strong need in India for the jewelry.
I'll go to Gaurang. Gaurang, we've seen a sharp knee-jerk reaction on all these gold and jewelry stocks after Prime Minister's appeal. What is your advice to investors who are either holding on to such stocks in their portfolio or maybe wanting to take the benefit of this dip? What would you advise?
So, Sakshi, allow me to give a small disclosure because we are talking about sector and stock specific, if you will. So
Sure.
all recommendations that I'll be sharing with you on your show this afternoon, Sakshi, are a part of our fundamental research team recommendation. Our company, Geojit, and myself, we do not have any kind of personal investments, no financial interest, no conflict of interest, but we share similar investment ideas with our clients. So first of all, what Mr. Sonthalia was talking about is that the impact of what appeal Honorable Prime Minister has done in the last 28 or 24 to 48 hours. will not translate into a meaningful downtick. We will need to give it time to understand the impact of this appeal and how much that translates at ground level. What do investors, so this is an appeal from a short to medium term point of view to take care of our forex, whatever requirement and not to have any additional burden. We are maintaining a positive stance on Titan Company, and this Titan Company, Sakshi, does not only make gems and jewelry. They are into wristwatches, they are into eye care, they are into accessories. They took over a company called Carrot Lane some time back, which is a premium platinum jewelry making company. Didamas is also something, there was some news on that as well. So you have diversified verticals from where Titan drives its top line and bottom line. It's not only restricted to gems and jewelry, unlike, Kalyan or likewise. So we remain positive as of now, but as the management was speaking a while back of Titan, I think we need to give it at least a couple of months to understand if there is any meaningful negative impact on the earnings of all these companies.
Fair point. And moving on to a big statement from veteran banker Uday Kotak at a CII summit today. Mr. Kotak has warned that global impact may now start hitting markets. He's also cautioned to prepare for the worst. He's also urged India to brace for a big shock from the US-Iran conflict. Let's listen into what he had to say.
My view is we should prepare for paranoia before the event, and we must hope that tough times do not come or remain, but we must prepare for the worst. Therefore, it is about preparation, be ready for tough times, rather than waiting for the shock to hit us. And in many ways, the Prime Minister said,
What would that look like?
I think you'll begin to see it. I mean, we have not seen the impact in the last 2 months of the Middle East war in terms of energy price transmission. It's coming, and it's coming big, and the consumers have not felt the pressure at all. And think about a consumer with limited income having to spend more directly on fuel and indirectly on other items for fuel, or dependent on fuel. The shock is coming. We have old inventory.
That's a very, very important bite coming in. Let me quickly go across to Madhavi. Madhavi, what do you make of the kind of statement that Mr. Uday Kotak has made right now? He said, the impact has not been seen in the last 2 months, and consumers have not yet felt it. What could it mean in case we have to prepare for the worst? What could it be? What could the worst be that we are being asked to prepare for ourselves for?
Sakshi is right. At this point in time, we as consumers haven't felt the energy shock. To a large extent, the government and the oil market companies were bearing the large brunt of the oil shock that the economy is facing at this point in time. It started off with OMCs, which beginning of the crisis was still about okay because they were sitting with huge profits for the last 2 years. But since the crisis dragged on to where it is right now, the pain is pretty much felt to OMCs, which government bore to some extent by taking on the excise cut on their books, which also was partly compensated by the export taxes that they put. But sitting today, even at this point in time, OMCs are bearing almost 17 to 18 rupees per litre kind of under recovery on blended basis. Government is already bearing roughly around 1.2, 1.3 lakh crore annualized pain on its book by taking that excise cut. And for all you know, they'll also have to take the pain of fertilizers subsidies, which could further shoot up from 1.7 lakh crore to maybe around 2.5 lakh crore or more. So the government is sitting with nearly 2 lakh crore kind of loss. OMCs are sitting with under recoveries on an annualized basis to the extent of around 4 lakh crore combined for both petrol, diesel and LPG, while the consumer is still insulated. And it's high time that consumer also becomes a part of this equation, because if you really want some kind of burden sharing which is fair in the system, I think it makes sense to now add consumer to the equation. So we do expect that the first step for the policymakers to sort of pass on a part of the pain would be increasing petrol diesel prices in the in the pump market. But we'll see how that pans out. But I think one has to prepare for the fact that this could be a much more pronounced and a prolonged pain, which is an externality for us as an economy. And clearly, the world could also get into a state where it could be a stagflationary pain, as Uday was mentioning in the speech, which eventually could actually become a situation where there will be a slowdown, which we felt globally in India would be no different. But we don't know as yet how things could really unfold as far as the global geopolitics and other dynamics are concerned. But I think it's high time we start preparing for it. And it's good if the consumer becomes a part of this equation, because the more the government bears the pain of, or the public sector bears the pain of this oil shock alone, the more restricted their spending would be. So we'll have to see, how much of the pain distribution happens in the economy. For that, the growth impact will be very different and the inflation impact will be very different. So I think somewhere the economy or the consumer will have to start preparing for a much higher petrol diesel prices to start off with, apart from other things that the government may have to undertake to control FX outflows.
Start for preparing for higher fuel prices. Madhavi clearly says that there is a situation that could arise when the government will have to see how petrol and diesel prices will have to go up to reduce the burden on OMCs that are currently under losses because of higher crude prices, and they're bearing the losses on their own. This price will have to be passed on in terms of higher petrol and diesel prices. And secondly, prepare for a stagflationary scenario. That means stagnating growth and higher inflation. That's what we have to prepare for. Meanwhile, viewers, when it comes to the crude oil prices, that's the crux of the situation. There's further breaking news coming in. Crude is rallying on geopolitical tensions. Brent crude has further surged about 3% now. Oil has extended its gains above $107 a barrel. Remember, this all started with Donald Trump, the remarks that he gave, which has hit the peace hopes yet again. The US-Iran ceasefire is continuing to be under pressure, and the further pressure is being seen as far as the crude oil prices are concerned. But amid the rising crude prices, it's Oil Minister back home, Hardeep Singh Puri, who says that India continues to have adequate fuel stocks with no shortage of crude, LNG or LPG. Oil companies, although, are facing under recoveries of 1.98 lakh crore rupees, while losses are pegged at 1,000 crores per day in this quarter. Let's listen into what he had to say.
No problem on the supply management side, no shortage of anywhere. And I'm going to conclude this by saying we have 60 days of crude, which is the maximum we need. We have 60 days of LNG and we have 45 days of LPG. So there's no problem on the supply side. So why this panic since yesterday or a day and a half? Please see what the Honorable Prime Minister has actually said. And let's not put a bizarre construct on it. If you look at the fiscal situation, if you look at the fact that my oil companies are losing what? 1,000 crores every day, that the under recovery is going to be what? 198,000 crores, 2 lakh crores nearly. The losses are what? 1 lakh crore if you look at the quarter. In that context, how long can you keep it like this?
So the OMCs are continuing to feel the heat at this point in time. They're facing a lot of losses in terms of higher crude oil prices. And just when this is happening, Prime Minister Modi's push for responsible fuel usage also is coming alongside the government's plans to now accelerate ethanol blending in petrol. The government is now preparing for the next phase of ethanol blending roadmap, and sources have told Business Today that Centre is internally evaluating the rollout of E21 petrol by 2027, while E25 blending could be targeted for 2029. For more on this, I'm joined by my colleague Chetan Bhutani, who's been getting us all these stories. Chetan, give us an understanding. One, the appeal from Prime Minister to conserve fuel, to shift towards alternate options like EVs or public transport, but there is another effort that's going on from the government to reduce the kind of full petrol and diesel that we use, to increase ethanol blending so that we have to depend less on imports of fuel. How are you looking at it?
Well, Sakshi, achieving 20% ethanol blending really helped India save about 4.4 crore barrels of import of crude oil annually, and we really saved out about 1.5 lakh crore of foreign exchange outflow. Well, with this, the government now plans that by 2027, next year, April to May, is what the government is looking like to achieve E21 ethanol blending. By 2029, the government wants to achieve E25, which is 25% blending, but the government wants to approach it in a very calibrated and a staged manner, because they have to give adequate time to the automobile companies to get ready with the technology and eventually get ready with the dispensation of that particular technology as well. So